Urgently, Washington is shifting to a new phase of diplomacy and action. The United States is deploying large-scale support for Ukraine with continuous deliveries of weapons. It's hard to believe, but the equipment is already on its way to the front lines. Europe is preparing a new wave of missile aid, while Moscow anxiously catches every signal from the West. Putin is on edge. Trump is no longer willing to tolerate his provocations. The White House has clearly defined its course. The Kremlin's blackmail no longer works. How will Putin pay for his actions? This and more in the following report. It seems that even in the East, people have finally lost faith in Putin. No, it seems the Trump administration no longer believes it's possible to reach an agreement with the Kremlin, neither on peace nor on arms control. Now, instead of dialogue, it's about building up strength and supporting allies. The US is strengthening Europe's defense, providing Ukraine with the most advanced weaponry, and returning to a strategy of deterrence. And in Moscow, this has clearly caused some nervousness.
Russia has always faithfully adhered to and continues to adhere to all of its obligations under the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty.
And we have no plans at all to abandon these obligations.
At the same time, it is indeed true that back in my address in the year 2023 to the Federal Assembly, I stated that if the United States or any other parties to the relevant treaty were to conduct such tests, then Russia would also have to take appropriate and adequate countermeasures. This remains our official position.
Putin instructed his loyal subordinates to sniff out exactly what threats the American plans pose.
I am instructing you to do everything necessary and appropriate to thoroughly gather additional information on this important issue and to conduct a careful and detailed analysis within the Security Council.
And to submit carefully coordinated proposals regarding the possible and potential commencement of preparations for nuclear weapons testing.
In particular, at the latest Security Council meeting, the bunker was briefed on the U.S. intention to deploy Dark Eagle missile systems in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region.
At the end of this year, the U.S. plans to adopt a new medium-range missile system, Dark Eagle, equipped with hypersonic missiles with a range of 5,500 kilometers. Furthermore, there are plans to deploy this system in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. The flight time of such a missile from the territory of Germany, where this missile system is planned to be deployed, to targets in central Russia will be about 6 to 7 minutes.
Belousov also informed Putin that the United States is working on the development of a new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Sentinel, with a range of 13,000 kilometers, a Columbia-class strategic nuclear submarine, and the heavy bomber B-21 Raider. Donald Trump in turn confirmed his intention to resume nuclear testing. The process will begin immediately, he stated in a video address published on the Truth Social platform. According to him, other countries are already testing new combat systems, and America must do the same to maintain the balance of power.
This is reminiscent of a dance between the Russian and American partners. Still, Russia and Putin are cautiously taking on the role of the follower in this tango, in this dance. And I don't think Russia will officially announce the resumption of nuclear testing before the Americans do. And in this case, Trump is doing this partly as a response to all these aggressive statements from Putin and the Russian leadership about new weapon systems that could supposedly wipe the entire east coast of the US off the map, or fly like the Burevestnik for many years over the earth, emitting some kind of radioactive vapor into the air. And so this is, in a way, his answer. If, in the context of the general escalation of the global situation after the deterioration of relations between Russia and the US and the start of the war in Ukraine, such tests can be resumed. By the way, many military officials in Russia, as well as in America, China, France, and England, will breathe a sigh of relief and will gladly do this, since from their point of view, it increases the power of deterrence.
At the same time, Washington is strengthening its capabilities in space. The U.S. Space Force is preparing to deploy 2 weapon systems designed to suppress Russian and Chinese reconnaissance satellites. According to Bloomberg, the Meadowlands system and remote sensing terminals will complement the existing counter-communication system, which was adopted in 2020.
The new systems will be dispersed around the world and sometimes operated remotely. They are intended to counter what American military officials are increasingly describing as the growing Chinese space threat to American forces.
According to estimates by the US Space Force, there are currently thousands of satellites in orbit and hundreds of them are used for surveillance and reconnaissance. They give the adversary the ability to detect aircraft carriers, formations, and logistics. The Pentagon emphasizes that these technologies are purely defensive in nature. However, experts are convinced that this is about establishing a new level of strategic deterrence. And while Washington and Moscow are measuring their nuclear strength, Europe is preparing for defense. The EU and NATO are creating a system of military logistics corridors, routes by which, in the event of a threat, equipment, weapons, and troops can be transferred to the eastern flank within a matter of hours. The key hubs are Poland, Germany, Romania, and the Baltic countries. The European Commission has already presented the Readiness 2030 plan, a strategy aimed at uniting the continent's infrastructure into a single network. Railways, ports, and airports will operate according to unified NATO standards, and Germany will become the main transit hub for Europe's defense. An emergency has begun in the Russian Federation. The so-called Putin elite, who have just returned from the well-known special military operation, are imposing their own order. However, the dictator does not like this trend. An urgent order has been given to deal with the contract soldiers. A video from the heart of Russia, Putin is beginning to eliminate his own people. At the same time, the Kremlin's mouthpiece has blocked the channels. The topic of the Russian army is now taboo. Moscow is nervous, and not without reason. Russians are no longer staying silent and are taking to the streets in protest. Dissatisfaction is growing and the tension has reached its peak. What will happen next? We'll tell you in just a moment. Don't miss it.
What could be more terrifying for Russians than sending their own son or husband to the front in Ukraine? That's right, if he comes back at all.
In St. Petersburg, a man who returned from the war is terrorizing his apartment building, threatening his neighbors, and throwing some kind of imitation grenades from his balcony.
Very few people want to live on the same street or worse, in the same building with these so-called heroes of the special military operation. As a rule, these newly minted veterans were already notorious outcasts before the war, and after returning from the front, they've completely lost all restraint. Theft, murdering their own drinking buddies, rape and robbery have become everyday occurrences in the peaceful lives of Russian special military operation veterans.
There's a famous saying among our people: there's no defense against a crowbar except another crowbar.
For the Russian ex-cons, drug addicts, and psychopaths returning from the war, that other crowbar will be waiting for them. How can I put this more delicately? The story with the sledgehammer. It's hard to believe, but Russian propagandists are increasingly speaking openly about killing or resetting their own soldiers. Bloggers insist that there is no place for participants of the special military operation in civilian life. The state isn't even considering bringing them back and helping them adapt to peaceful life. All these people who have received weapons, gone through the war, and some of them have a very serious, even criminal past. Something has to be done with these people. And on top of that, it's far from the best of the best who are coming back from the war. The new Putin military elite, as the bunker man calls it, is made up entirely of convicts who were granted amnesty. I would really like to actually look directly into the eyes of the person who made the decision to use prisoners in combat situations, because honestly, that's a ticking time bomb just waiting to explode. And it's going to explode inside Russia itself.
Or maybe they're just idiots, that's also possible.
A significant portion of our contingent at this point already consists of people who, while being in places of detention or under investigation, sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense. In doing so, they either escape punishment and trial, or they get out of camps, out of prisons, and get the opportunity, as they say, here we say, to atone for their guilt with blood. But in reality, they get the chance to be free for a while, and possibly, if things go well, to eventually walk free, fully pardoned, maybe even with awards and so on and so forth. The solution that the Kremlin has found is both ingenious and cruel at the same time. There are rumors that Putin has simply ordered that no one alive should return from the front. Putin wants to send the prisoners loyal to the authorities to Africa. As for the rest, following the old Wagner PMC tradition, they are to be disposed of. The first option is to send them somewhere to Africa. The second option is that, in general, they will, well, how to put it more gently, the story with the sledgehammer. At the same time, it is worth noting that such a proposal, which is increasingly voiced by Kremlin propagandists, seems to have received tacit approval from the Russian population as well.
Because this is Russian Nazism. You see, they get a thrill from death. It's the only thing that truly excites them.
A full-scale campaign against Russian contract soldiers who have returned from the special military operation is also being waged on Russian federal channels. There, around the clock, 24/7, they keep persuading people to sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense. But when it comes to the death toll at the front, the Kremlin has ordered silence. For example, Russian propagandists cut from the broadcast a part of Putin's conversation with an 11-year-old girl who asked the president to bring her uncle back from the war.
What would you like to be done with your uncle?
Well, he's currently on a mission at the front. He was wounded in the arm. He was in the hospital, but they're not treating him at all. And now they're sending him back on a mission. And I would like him to be transferred to a good hospital in Russia.
Russian propaganda has been given the command, attack! The Kremlin's mouthpiece has been tasked with going after their own soldiers. Sit quietly and pretend you're not being beaten. It seems Putin is tired of playing war with old toy soldiers, so the bunker dweller ordered to get rid of them.
Weakness is unacceptable because it creates temptation, the illusion that some issue with us can be resolved.
Endless video appeals from grief-stricken Russian mothers, desperately trying to find their children who have gone missing at the front, pleas for help from wounded and abandoned contract soldiers left without medicine or medical care, and complaints from mobilized troops about the unbearable conditions of service in the Russian army. It seems Vladimir Vladimirovich has had enough of it. But instead of actually attempting to solve the problem, the bunker dweller prefers to simply ignore it and has now issued an official order to Russian propagandists to stop any and all discussion about the ongoing troubles and difficulties within the Russian army.
It's not necessary, not needed, and simply absurd.
Putin only needs soldiers on the battlefield. Outside of it, all these people become a threat to the Kremlin. Those who are unscrupulous and highly skilled with weapons can, in particular, cause significant problems for the regime.
What I want to say is this. The workers in the swamps carefully record everything very clearly, and they hide absolutely nothing.
There will be an order to send them home only as a last resort. Only as a last resort. And even then, only if... In other words, the order is to scatter them wherever possible in any available place.
Those who refuse to be scattered face liquidation. That's all for now. This was me, Darina Hutskalo. There will be even more hellish news in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.